Hello. Wave. Tonight I'm going to show you really quickly how to make these cute little pom-pom earrings. I'm going to need you to not focus on this ugly nail that I just broke tonight. Obviously this is really going to get in the way of my hand modeling career. It's very sad. Anyway, you don't need very much to make these, and they're so fun, and they're big and make a big statement, but they're really light for those of you with sensitive earlobes like me. So I've made one, and I'm going to show you how to make the partner. So all that you really need are some scissors, a bunch of yarn, and you'll need some stuff like the hardware to turn the pom-poms into earrings. But to make the pom-pom, you really only need yarn and scissors. The hardware you need is some kind of earring clasp. I like these kind of big loopy ones. I think that's the technical name. And then you probably, this isn't mandatory, but you probably want something to use to put distance between the pom-pom and the hook. Otherwise the hook kind of is like way down inside the pom-pom, and it gets caught in the yarn, and it's really hard to kind of operate. So I'm using these little gold circles that you just kind of pry apart and then pry back together after you chain them. You could use a piece of yarn, you could use a little piece of chain or wire, really anything. It doesn't really show that much, honestly. Down kind of in the pom-pom here, you can hopefully see. So yeah, those are the parts that I'm using here. Now, I have for many years made pom-poms with nothing but my hand. I recently splurged on this here, a little pom-pom tassel maker kit. Can you see that? From Hobby Lobby. It's pretty expensive for me. It's $20, but I used a coupon, so it was $12. And it just makes it easier to make consistently kind of round sized pom-poms, and it also makes it easier to get more precise pom-pom diameters. So they make a lot of different versions of these. Hobby Lobby had 3 different ones. I, of course, opted for the most expensive one. I think the cheaper ones would be fine. I'll put a link in the blog post to the one I bought, and then another one that I think is probably just as good and maybe in some ways better. But anyway, for this guy came out of that kit. This is the 1.5 inch size pom-pom maker. So this is just half of it. So the diameter will be 1.5 inches. Okay, so to start, we first make the pom-pom. And if you are going to use one of these little guys, which I'm going to do in the video here, you start by kind of wedging the end of the yarn into this little niche here, and then you wedge on one side with a little tail, and you want to keep the tail out, and then on the other side you wedge again. So you'll see you've got kind of the yarn going across the back there. And then you just pull the yarn in here and just start wrapping. And as you wrap along the inside of this thing, that yarn that's in the back here is going to get kind of forced up and around the pom-pom. You just wrap and wrap. And you have a couple different options in terms of how much wrapping you want to do. The less you wrap, the smaller, kind of looser your pom-pom will be. This is rocket science, I know. The more layers you put in, kind of the more probably trimming you're going to have to do, but the fuller it will be. So both looks are cute. I did a pretty full pom-pom on this guy. I probably prefer the full look. Also, I'll pause here to say I made some pom-poms earlier. Well, actually, I'll grab one out of multiple colors, and I think they look cuter full. So I'll show you. I made some Boomer Sooner pom-pom earrings, and I think the fuller they are, the more defined the little like colored blotches are. So that's just my pro tip there. So If you want to do more than one color, all you do, like right here, I've done, you can see I've done, you know, 3 or 4 passes. I would stop. You can just leave this if you're going to come back to this color later, but it makes it kind of hard to wrap around it. So I usually just cut it and leave a tail, get a new color, then just wrap over the top, cut it, get a new color, and keep going. And it will form kind of stripes up and down the pom-pom, and it looks really cute. For this one, I'm just doing one color, so I'm just going to keep wrapping, but if you want to do more than one, it's really not any harder. You just have a few more tails to contend with as you're wrapping, but at the end, you'll just trim them down to the size of the pom-pom, and no one will ever know. So you could stop here and have a fairly loose pom-pom. I'm going to keep going. So I keep going until this kind of curve here is really kind of all filled in. So really till it's kind of flush with those little, I don't know, legs, teeth, whatever those things are. More yarn. Going, going, going. And I like to kind of do it snugly, and that helps you accommodate more and make it even fuller. Okay, so I'm going to call that good there. When you're done, you simply cut. All right, now all this bulk here is going to be your pom-pom. So now we need to go back to that very first step that we did, which was leave this little string here, and you can see it runs, turn it over here, it runs along this plastic all the way through and comes out right here. So what you need to do is cut it so that you're going to tie it and cinch it around the middle, and that's the mechanics of your pom-pom. That's all that's really holding it together. So what I like to start with is I get the scissors kind of in that slot, not the sharp end, but kind of a blunt end, and just pull it a little bit because I want a little bit of slack out this side because I'm going to have to tie it. Okay, so now I'm going to trim it as far kind of away from where I need it possible. And then you can see here it pulls through. I mean, it's tight because of all that yarn around it, but I got 2 ends of that initial piece of yarn that I tied through. Okay, so you can see if I get rid of this little tail here, that's from the wrapping, you can see I have 2 ends here. And I probably should have left a little more slack. This is a little bit short to work with to tie. It'll be fine, but it's just a little bit more of a pain. So you're just going to tie a knot as tight as you possibly can, because like I said, this is all that is holding all that yarn together. And I'm sure my fingers are all in the way, but I'm just trying to get it real nice and snug. As always, or you could use a third hand to help get a tight knot. Sometimes I will just use the scissors in there. Tighten that knot one last time. Okay. Alright, so I've got those tails. I've still got the tail that I just had from wrapping. All of that can be trimmed down at the very end. Okay, so now's the fun part. So you can see here, there's a little slit that runs the length of this little plastic thing, and you put your scissors in and you cut. Okay. Now, before I take this out, I kind of leave it like this, where you can kind of see the belly of the pom-pom. And at this point, I'm going to attach the hardware. Okay. So to do these the way I did, again, you can do this any way you really want, but I'm going to make a chain out of these 3 hoops. So I'm going to start with this guy. Just open it as little as possible with some pliers, needle nose pliers. Okay. And then I'm going to put into in it. Okay, and then close it back up. You're going to want to be sure that you get it really closed up, otherwise it'll, I don't know, these metal things always find a way to slip out of each other. So just get it nice and snug so that your chain isn't going to break. So we'd hate to lose a pom-pom. Okay, and then on one end, only one end of your chain, you're going to open it up a little bit wider, and you're just going to grab your pom-pom and find the string that you tied and grab it with the open hoop. Hard to do. These nails and the camera angle. There we go. So I got it through the hoop. Okay, and then you close it up. Maybe. There we go. Close it up, get it a little snug. This one I usually squeeze this one extra hard, and if it deforms and kind of makes an oval, it doesn't matter. This one's not going to show. It's way down there in the pom-pom. Okay, so now you should have a little chain here. And then the last thing is you're going to grab your hoop. And depending on what kind of earring hardware you selected, the step may change. But these are really easy. You just slide it through, and it catches in this little depression. And then you don't have to do this, but I like to squeeze that little depression closed just so that this doesn't always try to fall out of there. Then you can close the earring, and it's all attached. And now the last thing to do is just to cut the pom-pom to shape. So I like to do this while it's still in this little teal pom-pom maker contraption, because it kind of, I think, makes it easier to eyeball how I need to trim. So the way this apparently works is the bottom is perfectly to size, that because you wrapped, you know, by the end of the wrapping, you were wrapping so big around this pom-pom maker, the top is extra long and crazy. So I like to keep the pom-pom maker on it because this side looks good, and then I just use that to assess how to shape the rest of it. So I'm going to grab the earring hook with my finger so I can hold it out of the way. And I normally do this over a trash can, but I didn't want you to see the inside of my trash can. So then I start kind of liberally on the long stuff, just getting it kind of down in the right ballpark. And I would say, until you're comfortable with this, go easy. Like, just start slowly. You can always cut more off, but you can't glue it back on. And just kind of keep turning it and fluffing it and looking at it in different ways and different angles until you are happy with the shape. It's getting there. And I always, once I take the plastic out, I always still have a little bit left I want to cut, but I just think it's easier with it kind of supporting the shape to do your first main pass here. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to pull this off. You can see here before I fluff it closed, there's the belly. Okay, so then I'm just going to fluff it up. It's got a pretty cute pom-pom. See, it's still a little bit long over here. I feel like a bonsai tree trimmer when I do this. pretty cute. I love this color. Okay, so then here we go. Get that junk out of the way. Little cuties. Two little fun rose pom-pom earrings. That's all there is to it.